From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report in Special English. The World Economic Forum says the most likely risk facing the world over the next 10 years is a big difference between rich and poor. The estimate was made in a new report called the World Economic Forum's Global Risks 2013. Food availability and the spread of terrorism are noted every year, but new risks, especially technological and economic ones, are getting more attention. The report was based on surveys of more than 1,000 experts from around the world. They considered the likelihood and impact of risks should they become reality. Sharp income disparity was considered the most likely problem to take place in the next 10 years. This is the second straight year that a wealth gap was named. Next was what the report called chronic fiscal imbalances, or the failure of governments to deal with heavy debt over time. The risk said to have the biggest possible impact was a major failure in the world financial system, like the collapse of a top institution or currency. But experts rated a water supply crisis as second on the list of high-impact risks. How the experts changed their opinions is also something to note. This year, the mismanagement of the aging population moved from the 18th to the 5th most likely threat. The failure to deal with the costs and social issues involved with an aging population is now considered a risk with much greater potential impact. There were also extreme possibilities. The report called these X factors. They include the likelihood of our climate going out of control and even the discovery of alien life. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. The economic situation in Italy is worrying investors and may have cost its prime minister his job. Like Greece, Italy is facing pressure to make unpopular cuts in government spending. Silvio Berlusconi sought to enact measures meant to satisfy his country's creditors. On early November 8th, Mr. Berlusconi won a budget vote in Italy's lower house of parliament. But the prime minister lost something else. A majority of lawmakers in the lower house refused to vote. It appeared Mr. Berlusconi had lost their support. He announced that he would resign after Parliament passed budget-cutting measures. Italian government debt is about 120% the size of the country's economy. That is second only to Greece in Europe. Greece, Ireland, and Portugal have all required rescue loans to help them pay creditors. But unlike those nations, Italy has the third largest economy using the euro, and it is among the 10 largest economies in the world. On November 7th, European finance ministers met in Brussels to discuss the deepening debt crisis among nations using the euro. European Union Economic and Monetary Affairs Commissioner Olli Rehn said Italy needed to enact reforms. It is essential now that Italy will stick to its fiscal targets, ensure their implementation, and intensify the structural reforms that can boost growth and job creation. Italy recently faced an increase in borrowing costs that topped 7%. Unlike Greece, Italy's budget deficit is not out of control. Of greatest concern, however, is Italy's lack of growth and job creation. Financial officials and market watchers are also concerned that Italy's debt problems may be too big to solve for the 17 nations using the euro. European leaders have yet to agree on the size and conditions of a rescue fund or plan. In Brussels, Dutch Finance Minister Jan Kees de Jager said the rescue fund needed to be bigger. But he said budget reform of Euro nations was important too. We have to increase the capacity of the emergency fund. That's very important, but it's not the only thing. Economic reforms and budget cuts in countries currently under attack of the financial markets are at least as important than more money in the emergency fund. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Special English is VOA's daily source of news and information for people learning English. Go to voaspecialenglish.com for transcripts and MP3s of our stories and for the classroom, our e-learning platform.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. Recent discoveries of mineral wealth in Kenya could help add to East Africa's biggest economy. The government also is taking steps to improve the openness of the mining industry. But some citizens are concerned that at least one newly announced mining project will damage local communities. The government has warned companies about making announcements about new resources before they are confirmed. Kenya's Secretary of Mining, Najib Balala, says the government will ask mining companies for details about their findings 21 days before making them public. The discoveries also could upset some communities where big mining projects are planned. One example is the recent discovery of rare minerals in the Marima Hills in the coastal area of Kwale. The mining company Cortec reported finding a deposit of more than 600 kilograms of niobium. The element is used in making steel and metal mixtures called superconducting alloys that allow electric currents to travel very easily. Cortec says the discovery could be worth $50 billion. But a dispute has begun between the company, the government, and the local community. Leaders of the Mijikenda ethnic group, which lives near Kenya's coast, say they practice their religion in the Marima Hills. The Kenyan government has not announced how payments it receives from mining companies, called royalties, would be used. The mining secretary is expected to present legislation proposing that the central government take 70% of mining royalties. Local governments would receive 25%, and local communities would receive 5%. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. The United States, the European Union, and Japan have called for talks with China under the dispute settlement system of the World Trade Organization. They want to discuss China's export limits on rare earth metals and 2 other minerals. WTO rules give talks 60 days to work. If they do not settle the dispute, a WTO panel can then be requested to help reach a settlement. Rare earth metals are used in the manufacture of almost every high-technology device, from mobile phones and computers to batteries for electric cars. And demand is only growing. China says it follows WTO rules in exporting the minerals. In 2010, China mined about 130,000 metric tons of rare earth metals. That was about 97% of world production. But information from China's government and the United States Geological Survey shows that China has reduced its export limits sharply in the past 2 years. Critics say this unfairly helps Chinese companies in the production of high-technology products. And they say it is a violation of World Trade Organization rules. President Obama explained why the United States was involved in the case. He said American manufacturers use rare earth materials to make high-tech products like advanced batteries. We want our companies building those products right here in America, he said. To do that, they need access to materials that China supplies. In the president's words, if China would simply let the market work on its own, we'd have no objections. But he said Chinese policies go against the very rules that China agreed to follow. China says it has restricted rare earth exports to meet needs at home. And it says its policy helps limit the environmental damage caused by overmining. China now faces a slowing economy. In February, the nation had its biggest trade deficit in 10 years. Experts expect China's central bank to increase the money supply to aid economic growth. At the same time, inflation remains a threat. On March 14th, Premier Wen Jiabao discussed the need for reform. China, in his words, must continue to strike a balance between maintaining steady and robust economic development, making economic structural adjustments, and managing inflationary expectations. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Get more business news and learn English at voaspecialenglish.com. This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. The World Economic Forum is an independent organization. Its job is to help businesses, governments, and civil society groups find ways to work together to improve the world. The 21st World Economic Forum on East Asia recently took place in Thailand. Organizers wanted to bring attention to development in Southeast Asia. The event received extra attention because of the presence of Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese opposition leader and a newly elected member of Parliament. She traveled to Bangkok in her first foreign trip in over 20 years. Burmese President Thein Sein canceled his appearance at the meeting shortly after her travel plans were announced. Klaus Schwab started what came to be called the World Economic Forum and serves as its executive chairman. In opening comments, he praised the growing influence of Southeast Asian nations in the world economy and in political issues. In his words, "When you look at the ASEAN region, you feel that here you have a region which is full of dynamism." He said the region becomes more and more a crucial factor in the world economic and world political context. Several government leaders were in Bangkok for the meeting. They included the President of Indonesia, the Prime Minister of Vietnam, and the Prime Minister of Thailand. The forum is a place to discuss issues affecting the 10 members of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. In a speech, Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra noted threats like the debt crisis in Europe and climate change. But she also pointed to technological progress, democratic reforms, and new centers of economic growth as signs of hope. ASEAN nations are becoming increasingly important in the world economy. As a group, their economic activity is nearing $2 trillion. Southeast Asian economies are expected to grow more than 5% this year. That rate is higher than Europe or North America. World Trade Organization Director General Pascal Lamy also attended the meetings. He said Southeast Asia is doing better than other areas now, but he warned that a slowing world economy could create problems. He said he would expect the region to be more affected in the 2 or 3 years to come than it has been so far. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.